First-person point of view. When we say POV in fiction writing, we're talking about the point of view of the narrator. For this, we have three main point of views: first-person POV, second-person POV, and third-person POV. In a three-part series, we'll be taking a look at each of these with examples. For first-person POV, the main character of the novel is the narrator, and so tells the story using first-person pronouns: I, me, myself, we, us. This is an interesting way to write a novel, as it gives the impression that the readers are directly in the mind of the main character/narrator and having the very same experiences. The storyteller in a first-person narrative is either the protagonist relaying their experiences or a peripheral character telling the protagonist's story. The novel is narrated as though every action is either happening to the narrator, through the narrator, or in the presence of the narrator. What the narrator does not know and experience, the readers cannot know or experience. Although this POV is of course limited to the bias of the narrator, it has gained popularity in contemporary fiction writing as many authors now adopt this style. Some authors use alternating first-person POV in writing when there are two main characters or multiple characters' first-person POV to give the story depth, and it goes further to show the bias of a single POV. An example of a novel written with alternating first-person POV is my novel, A Billionaire's Guide to Beating the Enemy. You can grab a free copy on Amazon by clicking on the link below this video. Readers can only experience the story as the narrator does, seeing this fictional world exactly as the narrator does. How to write in first-person point of view. First, you have to decide what tense you'll be writing in: present continuous or past tense. When you're decided, you begin writing as though you, the writer, is the main character or the narrator, not an observer of the main action. You must be deliberate in ensuring that you maintain the same tense all throughout your manuscript. This can be tricky, as it is much easier to slip into past tense than to keep up with the present continuous tense. If it is your first time trying out first-person point of view, you can take it slowly and reread your manuscript to be sure that the tense is the same all through. Write an opening like Melville. Let the reader know you're using a first-person perspective right away, as Melville did in the opening line of Moby Dick with "Call me Ishmael." Introduce the character and narrative voice within the first two paragraphs to create a bond with your readers from the start. Be descriptive. In first person, avoid phrases that keep the reader in the narrator's brain. For example, I thought or I felt. While one of the advantages of first person is to know what the narrator is thinking, don't get stuck in their head. We also want to see through their eyes, so use visual language to show the readers around their world. Stay in character. When using the pronoun I, it's easy to slip out of the character's voice and into your own as the author. When you're writing, stay true to your narrator's perspective. Mix it up. Starting every line with I can become repetitive. Vary your sentences by illustrating thoughts or feelings. Instead of writing, I felt tired working through the deep snow, try, the mountain was buried in snow, making every step feel like a mile. Create a strong narrator. Make your first-person narrator an interesting character to make the story really work. Give them a solid backstory that influences their perspective. Reading other authors who employ the same style also allows you to understand better how it works, and equips you with skills to imitate the same. You can draw from the experience of how reading a first-person novel felt to write yours. Types of first-person point of view. There are two types of first-person point of view. First-person central. In first-person central, the narrator is also the protagonist, at the heart of the plot. Margaret Atwood's novel, Alias Grace, employs first-person central point of view. The story is based on a historical event, a double murder that occurred in 1843, in which a manservant was tried and hanged for the murder of his employer, Grace Marks. A maid was tried and imprisoned as his accessory. The novel is told in through Grace's point of view as she speaks to the doctor hired to exonerate her. The second is the first-person peripheral. In first-person peripheral, the narrator is a witness to the story, but he or she is not the main character. In The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald created the character of Nick, a friend of the protagonist, Jay Gatsby. Nick tells the story of Gatsby trying to win the love of Nick's cousin, Daisy. Telling the story this way keeps the focus on the protagonist, but also creates some distance, so the reader is not privy to their thoughts or feelings. This deliberately keeps Gatsby as a mysterious character and enables Nick to tell the story with a slant, drawing on his experience with Gatsby and his opinion of him to color the narration. Why write in first-person point of view? There are a number of reasons as to why it is you should write in first-person point of view. Some of them are, it gives a story credibility. First-person point of view builds a rapport with readers by sharing a personal story directly with them. Bringing the reader in close like this makes the story and storyteller credible. From the opening line of Herman Melville's epic sea tale, Moby Dick, the reader is on first-name basis with the narrator. Call me Ishmael. This familiarity creates a relationship with the narrator, leading the readers to believe that what they are about to hear is a true story. When a writer breaks that narrative trust by leading readers astray, either through a narrator who deliberately lies or a characteristic of the narrator that compromises their credibility, the narrator becomes unreliable. Number 2, it allows you to express an opinion. A narrator tells a story through a lens filtered by their opinions. In the first-person point of view, the use of the pronoun I establishes a sense of familiarity between reader and narrator, allowing the writer to subtly influence the reader by telling the story with a bias. Scout is a 6-year-old narrator in To Kill a Mockingbird, and the story is told with the innocence and naivety of a child's worldview. The author, Harper Lee, has several characters to choose from, but telling the story about race in the American South through this young character's eyes forces the reader to examine and question the inequalities of race in the same way that Scout does. Number 3, it builds intrigue. First-person perspective limits a reader's access to information. They only know and experience what the narrator does. This is an effective tool for creating suspense and building intrigue in stories, particularly in thrillers or mysteries. For example, John Watson is the narrator in almost all of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes mysteries. Keeping Holmes, the protagonist, at arm's length makes him more interesting, but it also allows the reader to be just as surprised as Watson when Holmes finally cracks a case. Readers tend to identify with characters who are learning like they are. Another example is Monique in The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, where the story is told from Monique's perspective, and we only get to know more about Evelyn Hugo, the main character, as the story unfolds. You can grab a copy of my published novel, A Billionaire's Guide to Betting the Enemy, for free by clicking on the link below. Watch out for my next book, The Billionaire's Redemption, that will be released this month of October. If you found this video helpful, leave a comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and be sure to turn on post notifications so you're the first to know when there's a new video. Be sure to catch up on previous videos too. Happy writing!